Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us this half hour. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up within the half hour. British lawmaker Lord Mandelson to step down from the House of Lords over his involvement with late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to testify in the congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Plus, Nigeria and other African countries waiting to sign on to America's Health Cooperation Framework. Let's begin the world today. And we begin in the United Kingdom, where Lord Mandelson from the House of Lords is set to step down over his connection with late U.S. sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It comes after the cabinet officer refers material to police after reviewing Epstein file documents that suggest alleged leaks of sensitive information by Lord Mandelson. Police are reviewing reports of alleged misconduct in a public office after emails suggest Mandelson forwarded internal government information to Epstein when he was business secretary in 2009. On Sunday, Mandelson reiterated his regret for ever having known Epstein and for continuing his association following Epstein's conviction. He's been further approached for comment. Meanwhile, the Conservatives are planning to force a vote in the Commons tomorrow on the government publishing more information relating to Mandelson. But apologize for the mix-up there in the video. In the meantime, former U.S. President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary Clinton have both agreed to testify in the congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. It comes days before a vote on whether to hold the couple in criminal contempt for refusing to appear before the House Oversight Committee after a months-long standoff. Bill Clinton was acquainted with Epstein, who died in prison in 2019, but has denied knowledge of his sex offending and says he cut off contact 2 decades ago. It's unclear when the depositions will take place, but it will be the first time a former U.S. president has testified to a congressional panel since Gerald Ford did so in 1983. The Clintons had long resisted a demand to appear before the committee, saying they had already given sworn statements representing the limited information they had on Epstein. They had dismissed the legal summonses issued by the committee as nothing more than a ploy to attempt to embarrass political rivals, as President Trump has directed. The House Oversight Committee, led by Republicans, then approved the measure to hold the Clintons in contempt late last month with the support of several Democrats. We'll stay a bit longer in the United States, which has been talking to a number of African countries, Nigeria included, about signing a health cooperation framework with the Trump administration, marking a new phase of U.S. involvement in global health governance. The Memorandum of Understanding with the several African nations focuses on reducing dependency, fostering self-reliance, and promoting U.S. private sector engagement in health systems. Kenya was the first to sign, securing a $1.6 billion agreement focusing on domestic health spending and U.S. Bogan projects technology for surveillance. Nigeria signed a deal worth over $2 billion with a strong focus on utilizing Christian-based health facilities. There's also Uganda, which has a pact of near $2.3 billion, including support for military and health policy watch faith-based providers. And then there's Rwanda with a $158 million to $228 million agreement involving AI and U.S. Department of State vaccine partnerships. Other signatories are Ethiopia, Mozambique, Botswana, Cameroon, Lesotho, Eswatini, Liberia, Madagascar, and Sierra Leone. We'll return to this story in a bit, but NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has claimed there would be troops on the ground, jets in the air, ships on the Black Sea as soon as a ceasefire deal is reached in his address to Ukraine's parliament earlier today. The exact terms, well, he has not described them as NATO troops yet, but despite the only countries so far committing to it are the UK and France, who describe them as some European allies. The exact terms of any U.S. backstop have been clarified. While Russia has repeatedly ruled out NATO troops on the ground under any deal, the UK and France committed to sending ground troops last month. More talks are expected between the Russian and Ukrainian sides this week.
The United States, Europe and Canada have affirmed their readiness to provide the assurance that Ukraine needs to be able to forge a peace with Russia. The members of the coalition of the willing made encouraging progress on these guarantees when they met last month in Paris. I was at that meeting, and so was President Zelensky. Some European allies have announced that they will deploy troops to Ukraine after a deal is reached. Troops on the ground, jets in the air, ships on the Black Sea. The United States will be the backstop. Others have vowed to support in other ways. The security guarantees are solid. And this is crucial because we know that getting to an agreement to end this terrible war will require difficult choices. Ukraine needs to know with absolute certainty that whatever sacrifices you have made, the lives you have lost, the devastation you have endured, will not be at risk of repetition. You need to know that this peace will be lasting, not because papers have been signed, but because there is hard power to back it up.
In other news, Russia is ready for the new reality of a world with no U.S.-Russian nuclear arms control limits after the New START treaty expires this week. Moscow's point man for arms control said earlier today, unless the two sides reach a last-minute understanding, they'll be left without any constraints on their long-range strategic nuclear arsenals for the first time in more than half a century, when the New START expires on Thursday. That's from the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister. He says this is a new moment, a new reality. We're ready for it. Sergei Ryabov, who oversees arms control issues, told Russian news agencies during a visit to Beijing for strategic stability consultations. The New START, which caps the number of deployed strategic warheads at 1,550, was signed in 2010. In comments to New York Times last month, U.S. President Donald Trump indicated he will let the treaty expire, but he has not formally responded to a Russian proposal to keep observing the treaty's missile and warhead limits for one more year to allow time to work out what to do after the pact expires. The World Government Summit 2026 has kicked off in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, with the theme Shaping Future Governments, gathering heads of state and government, senior officials and experts from around the world. In his opening remarks, UAE Cabinet Minister and WGS Chairman Mohammed bin Abdullah Al Gagawi spoke about the rise of Generation Z and how governments had to change and evolve. The WGS 2026, bringing together more than 6,250 participants, included heads of state and government as well as experts who aim to formulate shared strategies and visions to enhance governance and international cooperation. Through a rich agenda of discussions and panels, the summit aims to identify realistic and effective solutions to the mounting global challenges, as reported by the Emirates News Agency. This was first launched in 2013. The World Government Summit has become a leading international platform, bringing together governments, companies, and individuals to exchange ideas and experiences in support of improved government performance across sectors. Well, We'll return to more on the WGS in just a minute, but first, a look at America's first global health strategy, which has been the U.S. talking to other countries, Nigeria inclusive, about signing a health cooperation framework with the Trump administration. This memorandum of understanding with several African nations focuses on reducing dependency, fostering self-reliance, and promoting U.S. private sector engagement in health systems. Nigeria has already signed a deal worth over $2 billion with a strong focus on utilizing Christian-based health facilities. Kenya was the first to sign with a $1.6 billion agreement focusing on domestic health spending and U.S. Borgen project technology for surveillance. Uganda also with a $2.3 billion pact, including support for military and health policy watch faith-based providers, and Rwanda with a $158 million to $228 million agreement involving AI and U.S. Department of State vaccine partnerships. Other countries also that have signed up are Ethiopia, Mozambique, Botswana, Cameroon, Lesotho, Eswatini, Liberia, Madagascar, and Sierra Leone.
Sometime last year, we had some leadership training in Dubai, sponsored by the UAE government. And this year, we came for the graduation, which was yesterday, and just happened to have been held during the World Government Summit. So after the graduation, we are now part of the summit. So generally to know what is going on in the world and how to...
Once again, we apologize for the mix-up. Someone with very itchy fingers behind the scenes. Let's bring in our correspondent in Washington, Maria Bird, now, who's been studying this document, which I understand has been out there, Maria, since December last year, which was when many of these countries signed the deal. So how is this different from other deals of this nature with the United States?
Yes, as we know, has been the Trump administration's focus is America first. So this deal also starts with America first health strategy for Africa. And so that is a very interesting thought. I mean, I think that what we're seeing, if we just deal with what the memorandum focuses in on, it focuses in on kind of the health strategies that America believes can be of support to the countries that have signed on board. It also identifies some thoughts around access to minerals. And so we're trying to really understand what that exactly means. What is the access to minerals relationship with the health strategies? It also addresses and talks about the U.S. coming in and the administration coming in around, as you mentioned, vaccines and being in the USDA around some of the medications to manage through outbreaks. As we know, the U.S. has most recently experienced a COVID outbreak. We're actually experiencing some around some other diseases that have typically not been a part of conversations like measles, mumps, but the U.S. has also changed its positioning around vaccines even for Americans. So it brings forth a very interesting thought around how the U.S. Plans to address some of that when its focus around vaccines has changed drastically with the new administration. And so as you talk about America first, there are those who are wondering if this is really mostly about America and America's intentions and interest, or is this putting Africa at the forefront of the beneficiary of this health strategy? And so I think that's still where many are trying to evaluate. As you mentioned, this was signed on really honestly around the holiday time. So many people missed these memorandums and the focal points that the U.S. have put into place with various countries throughout the continent.
So the U.S. withdraws funding for U.S. aid, which usually would have been providing aid for many of these health projects across many African countries. But then it goes on to lure these countries, because that's what it seems like, into signing a deal with private American companies, I believe, onto this grand health projects with the United States. So help us understand whether the problem really with U.S. aid and with the Trump administration Trump administration and U.S. aid is the fact that this was not a project from the Trump administration, but this one is this global health strategy.
I think you really addressed some key components here around the public-private partnership component of this. We know traditionally, if we even look at the structure of politics in the United States, the Republican Party typically focuses a lot more on public-private partnership, which is why you see a lot more focused on reducing large-scale federal government mandates and really focusing on state. Where this is a bit different, though, is that this administration, the Republican administration, even though it has allowed some things to go through the governors and the state level, it does have some very sweeping federal mandates. And obviously, in this case, this is a sweeping federal mandate that then looks at global expansion and global commitments that the U.S. is making. One of the questions, though, is around, as you mentioned, USAID, which saw dramatic upheaval over the summer, and specifically around the thousands of individuals that lost their jobs that had these expertise and have been working for many years in areas around health and health strategies, not only obviously within African countries, but all across the world, and working collaboratively with various partners globally to address some of our major health crises that impact all of us. And so I think that's really the question, is how the U.S. plans to put these health strategies in place as it has reduced its capacity, resources, and knowledge with the USAID taking a dramatic cut and reduction over the past few months.
So, Maria, what does this deal mean for Nigerians and then for all the other countries involved?
What this really is going to, I think, where we're going to see probably the most immediate components is really around some of the vaccine components. I think as you talk about kind of the health challenges that the U.S. may perceive countries like Nigeria might be experiencing, how they support those specifically around hospital healthcare facilities. That's going to be the first area. I think as the U.S. is going to have to, in these private entities that might not have already had a presence in Nigeria or other countries as well, are going to have to learn the landscape. They're going to have to learn what the needs are and how they can be collaborative in nature. And so that's, I think, why we're going to really see more of kind of a healthcare approach initially. Support around healthcare and seeing some healthcare companies come in, and then being able to see how things manage from there. One of the things that obviously we've only really been able to see parts of the Kenya Memorandum of Understanding, but one of the things that it does note is that the U.S. would have the ability to come in and be able to identify strategies and kind of take over kind of being able to deal with what might be perceived as an outbreak. And so that's, I think, where some of the questions are coming, and some of the concern is, what does that mean for Nigerian government, Kenyan government, health industry, and specifically the health agencies that are governed by the various governments in those countries.
Thanks again, Maria. It does seem like a complicated document, but of course you've helped us understand a bit of it. I'm sure there's a lot more we need to uncover, but thanks for explaining this much. We're off on a break now. On the world today, Shenzhen's Orbit 1 draws crowds with its signature UFO delivery concept. We'll have details when we return. Do stay with us. Welcome back, and we're back to the World Government Summit, which kicked off in Dubai today with the theme Shaping Future Governments, gathering heads of state and government, senior officials and experts from around the world. Much earlier we heard from the UAE Cabinet Officer Affairs Minister, and WGS Chairman Mohammed bin Abdullah Al Girgawi, speaking about the rise of Generation Z and how governments had to change and evolve. Well, attending this summit is Permanent Secretary of Nigerian Cabinet Affairs Umobong Emanso Okob, who says the World Government Summit offered the chance for Global South nations to learn from each other. She was speaking exclusive on the sidelines at the landmark event earlier today.
Sometime last year, we had some leadership training in Dubai, sponsored by the UAE government. And this year we came for the graduation, which was yesterday, and just happened to have been held during the World Government Summit. So after the graduation, we are now part of the summit. So generally to know what is going on in the world and how to improve back home with our own government. We are actually government officials. Definitely it does, because it has brought people from all over the world. I've seen people from practically every country represented here. So it's a networking activities. You get to know what other countries are doing, and it gives you an idea what to go back to change in your own country. There's a whole lot going on. People are learning from each other. You have a challenge and you meet in a place like this, you share information. You share how to overcome some of the challenges, especially from people that had the same challenge before but have overcome them. So I think it has really affected the economy, the government processes, and just name it. It is there.
We'll also hear from Liberian ambassador to the UAE, Mohammed Dukuli, who says his nation wants partnerships, not handouts, to rebuild after many years of war. He also says he wants to strike deals on valuable natural resources. He was speaking also exclusively on the sidelines of this landmark event.
The reason we are here because this conference seeks to address the future. This generation must be able to put in place concrete actions that will guarantee the future of not just our children, but our great-grandchildren. And also, once we put solid foundation, they will be able to step on those to build foundation for other generations to come. And so we are living in the world of technology, the AI, but the AI must be guided by a structured principle. Otherwise, sooner or later, it's going to get out of hand, and it will create also harm to us. And second thing is, and this is unfortunate, but the more we advance in technology, the more the people, the human community will lose jobs, because some of the things that 10 people used to do, or 20 people, the technology can do it in no time. So what do we do to accommodate the future? I think this what this conference is about, to talk about economic issues, we talk about technology, we talk about agriculture, food security, we talk about regional stability, global peace, and this is important. So there can be no better place to be today than here, where we are talking about all of these issues.
And as we end the program today, Orbit 1, one of Shenzhen's most unusual high-tech dining destinations, is drawing crowds with its signature UFO delivery concept. It replaces traditional waiters with autonomous shuttle pods that glide across the walls and tables to deliver meals directly to the diners. So here we see families and influencers gathering under neon lighting, surrounded by star and planet decorations, as small flying saucer-shaped pods travel smoothly above tables before docking at service stations. The restaurant has become a family favorite, I imagine, with children filming UFO pods as they arrive. We also see stickers on tables announcing each arrival with the message, "UFO has arrived, please unveil your surprise dish." Shenzhen itself has become one of China's most dynamic cities for food and innovation, with a rapidly expanding dining scene. Back in 2023, the city recorded more than 54,000 new restaurant registrations. It is really fascinating. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani.